Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordy and Glory video. In today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at everyone's favourite big dick energy artillery piece, the Earthshaker battery. Now, I know some of you are going to be saying, surely, Mordy and Glory, you mean the Earthshaker cannon, and so therefore you're talking about the Basilisk, right? No, you are wrong. You are wrong. Get out of here, this person that's always asking me hypothetical questions in my videos. Get out of here. All right. Now that he's gone, we can actually talk about what I want to talk about, which is the Forge World unit, the Earthshaker Carriage battery. This unit is essentially a basilisk that never evolved to have tracks and instead decided to stay on the ground where it liked to be in a static position. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that basilisks aren't very good, they're kind of trash. Surely something that's like a basilisk must be also pretty bad. Well, actually, guys, I'm going to make a bold statement. I'm going to say that not only are these Earthshaker Carriage batteries good, I'm going to say they are the best artillery that you can field in your army right now. Better than field ordnance batteries, better than basilisks and manticores. Maybe not as memey, but definitely more than likely better than death strikes. And dare I say it, I think these things are also as good as mortars. They do a different job to mortars, but they are as usable as a mortar pit. And with that pretty controversial statement made, I think it's time we get into the nitty gritty. Let's dive right into today's episode. So as is tradition, let's begin with a unit overview. And similar to our Death Corps Marshal video, the first thing I need to make you aware of is that this is a Forge World unit. If you are checking your codex and you cannot see one of these things, do not worry, your codex is not defective. This unit is from Forge World. Therefore, you will find the original rules for it in the Forge World Compendium. However, I would warn you that the paper copy of the Forge World Compendium is woefully out of date, and you would be much better served looking at the Warhammer 40k app or Battlescribe or some other online resources. So now that we know where to find it, let's take a look at this datasheet. Starting off, it is a heavy support unit. You'll find it in the same place as your Basilisks and your Leman Russes, and it can be taken in squads of 1 to 3. This actually separates it from things like the Basilisk, which traditionally could be taken in units of 1 to 3, but then with the new 9th edition book got limited to just 1 per heavy support slot. This is actually pretty good. It means that if you are inclined to, you can spam these things pretty well. Or if you want to take more than one of them, but don't want to saturate your heavy support slots with them, you want to have some that are available for your Leman Russes and for your mortar teams, you can absolutely fit in a squad of Earthshaker cannons, all the mortars you like, and plenty of Leman Russes too. So being able to take them in squads of 1 to 3 is a pretty big deal. And in case it wasn't painfully obvious from the big old barrels, these things are a long-range artillery support unit. They are designed to pound the enemy from afar and for the enemy not really to be able to shoot back at them. In terms of a stat line, each Earthshaker battery has a movement value of dash. That is right. It doesn't even have a movement value of 0. It is dash. It has no movement. Now, the important distinction between a movement value of 0 and a movement value of dash is that dash is unimprovable. You can't take Swift as the Wind and start having your Earthshaker carriages move dash +2. It just doesn't work. They don't have a movement characteristic. So however you are trying to get around the fact that these things can't move, whatever crazy tactic you're trying to come up with, they can't. They can't move. It's as simple as that. They are fixed in place. Once you deploy them on the board, they stay still. They also have a weapon skill of 4+, a ballistic skill of 4+, a strength of 3, a toughness of 6, which is pretty nice, a wound value of 7, 5 attacks, leadership 7, and a 4+ save. I know some of you right off the bat are going to be curious about how that stat line matches up to a field ordnance battery. Well, the field ordnance battery has a movement value of 6, so it can actually move. This is pretty significant. It means it can fall back from combat. You can't fall back from combat with the Earthshaker Carriage battery, which means once your opponent ties it up, they are safe in combat, essentially. Earthshaker battery, them are dead. They have the same weapon skill, ballistic skill, and strength, but the Earthshaker has a toughness of 6, whereas the Fob only has a toughness of 4. That means that the fob is much more vulnerable to return indirect fire and small arms in general. You tend to need to direct something pretty hefty, something heavier than a heavy bolter against the Earthshaker Carriage battery. The Earthshaker also has an extra wound. The fob only has 6. And it has a few more attacks and leadership, but the same. But those stats don't really matter. And the save is about the same. However, looking at that profile 1-to-1 is a little bit misleading, because you have to remember that the field ordnance battery does come with 2 ordnance teams. So realistically, you're looking at that stat line and it's got 12 wounds, not 6. I would say on the balance, the Earthshaker and the fob are basically the same toughness, because whilst the Earthshaker is tougher, the fob does have more wounds. But the thing with comparing different artillery types is it's not about the damage they can take. Ideally, these guns will never be shot, right? Ideally, they are going to fire indirectly out of line of sight at the enemy, and they won't receive much incoming fire back. Therefore, it's not about how much damage they can take, it's about how much damage they can dish out. And for that, we need to look at the weapon profile. And the Earthshaker Carriage battery has a hell of a gun. It has the Earthshaker cannon. This is the same gun as you will find on the Basilisk. It's heavy D6 plus 3, it's strength 10, it's AP minus 3, it's flat damage 2, and it is indirect fire with blast. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Mordian, this thing's got the same profile as a Basilisk, but Basilisks are trash. Why are you telling me about this weapon? Because it's not the gun which makes the Basilisk bad. It's the platform that the gun is on. The problem with an Earthshaker cannon on a Basilisk is the fact that Basilisks cannot receive infantry orders. They can only receive mechanized orders. And the problem is that once you fire that Basilisk indirectly, it starts hitting on a 5+. Hitting on a 5+ is basically trash. Unless you're orcs, you can put out an insane volume of fire. Hitting on a 5+ with any kind of guard weapon is just it's a death sentence for that unit, basically. But the Earthshaker Carriage battery is fixed artillery, and as a result, it has different keywords. In fact, it has the platoon keyword, and this is very, very important, because this allows it to receive infantry orders. Suddenly, you can give this unit take aim. Suddenly, you have basically undone the indirect fire nerf. For those that don't know, there's an FAQ that says any weapon that fires indirectly has -1 to hit, essentially, and the enemy gets +1 armor save. But if you put take aim, if you use the take aim order on a unit, it gets +1 to hit and it gets +1 AP. So the end result is you just wipe out that indirect fire nerf. You just delete it. You just pretend it doesn't exist, essentially. This is what makes non-vehicle artillery so good, and what makes vehicle artillery in the Guard Codex so bad. Vehicle artillery cannot get around the indirect fire nerf. The best that they can get is reroll 1s to hit from gunner's kill on sight. But the thing is, thanks to things like the Master of Ordnance, who can give you reroll 1s for your artillery anyway, that order is not that useful. And therefore, as a result, when you start looking at your traditional artillery, your fixed artillery, you have units that can get around the indirect fire nerf, and they can still get reroll 1s to hit to boot. Okay, so it's clear that the Earthshaker Carriage battery is better than our Basilisk and our Manticores and our other vehicle-based artillery. Fine. But what about some of the Codex static artillery? What about those things like field ordnance batteries and mortar teams? Let's compare the Earthshaker to the field ordnance battery first, or the FOB for short. Now, the field ordnance battery has a number of weapon options, but the only one we're going to look at today is the bombast cannon. The reason for that is simple. The bombast cannon is an indirect fire weapon. It's an artillery piece. It's in the same category, same weapon type as the Earthshaker. The heavy las cannon and the Malleus rocket launchers are both direct fire weapons, and therefore they operate very differently. Their battlefield role is completely different. Now, the bombast cannon has an alright profile. It's heavy D6. Obviously, you get 2 of them, so it's heavy 2d6. Strength 7, AP -2, 2 damage. And on average, what this means is that the FOB is going to be putting out 7 auto cannon shots with a little bit more AP. Compare that to the Earthshaker battery, which is putting out the same average number of shots, heavy D6 plus 3, an average of 7. But it's putting them out at strength 10. It's got 3 better strength than the FOB. It's putting them out at AP -2. It's got an extra pip of AP. which means even against enemies that are dug into cover, it's got enough AP to tickle them. And it's got the same flat damage of 2. This weapon is significantly more powerful, yet it has the same average number of shots. But that's the key word, isn't it? Average. Because we've all been there, guys. We've all been in a game where we just need the dice just to stay statistical, just with a clutch moment. I'm not asking for too much. I'm just asking for you to roll normally, dice. And suddenly you roll your field ordnance battery, you roll that random shot weapon, and it comes up with snake eyes. And it's just not what you need, and it could even lose you the game. Field ordnance battery is very, very swingy. Sure, it might have a peak of 12 shots, but it has a trough of 2. And I don't know if your luck is anything like mine, but if it is, you're always going to roll that 2 at the worst possible moment. In comparison to this, the Earthshaker Carriage battery has a minimum of 4 shots. No matter what, even if you roll a big fat 1, you're still going to get 4 shots. That makes it much, much more reliable. Sure, it's not got as high peak. It can't roll 12 shots. The most it's going to get is 9. But I would still argue that if you roll 12 auto cannon shots versus 9 Earthshaker Carriage battery shots, I'd rather have the 9 big boom boom shots. I'm a go big or go home kind of person. So even though the number of shots might not be the same, the trough is much more reliable on the Earthshaker. The average is the same. And the peak, well, you're still going to get much more punch from the Earthshaker. And you want to know the real kicker from this? The real kicker is that the Earthshaker Carriage battery has a better gun. It's just as tough. And it's 10 points cheaper. It's only 120 points for one of these things. That makes it cheaper than our Basilisk and our Manticores. It actually makes it the cheapest artillery piece in our army, notwithstanding mortar heavy weapon teams. And speaking of mortars, let's take a look at those next. I'm not going to lie to you, mortars are fantastic. Probably the best go-to artillery that we have in our army right now. They fire 3d6 shots from a squad. They're incredibly affordable. So the number of shots makes them fairly reliable. The fact that you can spam them means that even if one squad fails, another squad will probably pick up the slack. They're a great target for stratagems like in ingrained precision. Mortars are great. But I would argue that mortars have a different preferred target to Basilisk cannons. Mortars want to go after light infantry. They're strength 5, so you can chuck them into anything, but mortars are going to struggle if they come across anything that's got a 2+ save. Because even if you give them take aim, they're AP dash. The opponent is going to have a 2+ save. And if you fire them against a unit of Marines or Marine equivalent that is in cover, just because you've got AP -1, it doesn't matter. They're still going to be on a 2+ save because your AP -1 counters out the indirect fire nerf, but it doesn't counter out the fact they still get light cover. So I would say that mortars are really, really good, but they have their niche. And I would argue that the Earthshaker Carriage does not compete with the mortars. It complements them. Basically, whilst your mortars are having a great time shelling the shit out of any light to medium infantry that your opponent has got in his army, your Earthshaker is there going after the heavy infantry, Terminators and the like, going after things like light, medium, and heavy vehicles. This thing's got strength 10. You can put it into any kind of knight. You can put it even into great unclean ones. Hell, the Hecaton Land Fortress, even with the trait that gives it +1 toughness, is still going to get wounded on 3s by this thing. Basically, if you need something that you can just tear a chunk out of, it doesn't matter what target it is, Earthshaker Carriage battery has got your back. It's not great into hordes because obviously it has a maximum shots of 9, whereas the mortars suddenly go up to like 18 shots if they have a unit that's got more than 11 models that they're shooting at. But the Earthshaker Carriage battery is not really designed for going after hordes. Like I said, you're taking it to support your mortars, not to compete with them. So hopefully after all that, you guys can agree with me that the Earthshaker Carriage battery is a fantastic piece of kit. It's definitely something that a lot of players need to be considering. However, there are 3 big caveats, 3 big problems with this thing. Firstly, it's not core. So you cannot use things like the big bullshit banner on it. The mortars definitely get that advantage. Also means they can't benefit from reroll 1 to hit or reroll 1s to wound from senior officers and platoon or Cadian command squads. The only way you can get reroll 1s on this thing is with a Master of Ordnance. Secondly, the lack of movement can be a big problem. If your opponent manages to tag your Earthshaker Carriage battery, he's potentially safe in there for a long time. And what's even worse, if you go against an opponent that has the ability to fall back and make another charge, well, then you're going to be in big trouble because you won't be able to shoot that enemy unit that's in your lines. And then they're going to be able to just start walking through your army. So the lack of movement is a big problem. It means you have to screen this thing effectively. Without it, you are opening up a really big Achilles heel into your army. But the last thing and probably biggest issue with the Earthshaker Carriage battery is its Forge World. And Forge World units have a very uncertain future. Right now, the general trend is that GW is consistently downsizing Forge World. They are constantly taking units off the website. They're constantly discontinuing things. As of recording this video, this week alone, a bunch of the Krieg, Mars, Alpha pattern tanks and other units got put on last chance to buy and they're no longer available. This, of course, makes it really difficult for me to recommend that players go out there and buy them because there is a chance that you could buy them, build them, paint them, and suddenly GW just goes, these units are legends, you can't use them anymore. It's a real annoying thing about wanting to get into Forge World units. My advice is this. If you already own these things or you're able to borrow them from a friend, try them out. Go for it. They're really good. If you're happy to buy them and you don't really mind if they go legends because your gaming group will allow you to just use them as basilists in the future, or you just like the look of them because you think they're cool, go for it. But if you're looking to buy these purely from a competitive point of view, you're not thinking about how cool they look or anything like that, I'd probably say that you need to be careful if you are considering buying a bunch of these things. It's a lot of money to invest in a unit that might not be usable by the time you've turned it through the painting workshop. But even with all of that said, I think it's pretty clear that the Earthshaker is by far the best big artillery that we have. It has all of the pros of vehicle artillery, the fact it's got a big ass gun, and it has all of the advantages of the foot-based artillery. The fact that it can receive those infantry orders just means it completely outshines anything else in the artillery park. But that's just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are you team Earthshaker Carriage Battery or are you team Field Ordnance Battery? Let me know what you're thinking down in that comment section. If you've enjoyed today's video, then make sure you smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. If you have found today's video particularly enjoyable or informative, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. One of the big perks of supporting the channel is you gain access to the Mordian Glory Discord server. This is a growing online community of over 1,000 active people. It's always popping off in the MG Discord, and we've got areas for discussing tactics and army lists. We've got painting and hobbying, and we've even got a pretty spicy meme section as well. And I'd just like to take a moment to say a big thank you to the latest channel members. Thank you to Grim Fate, Slothy, Faith Beyond 77, Rudy, Tweedlebum, Alexander, Fallon C. Cypher 37, Joseph Anderson, Zero Heim, Kaylee Ann Bristow, Cause Bad Guys, Jabba the Bearded, HRC Juniors, Mac Nahalber, Bootine Powered, Average White Shark 6, James Willett, Facelift 01, Graham Wellard, Alexander, Reese Jones, Travis Jones, Matthew Rumler, Matino, M, Mel, Andrew Bean, Lassie, Barack Obama, thank you Mr. President, Jake the Snake 839, Floofy Bat, Andrew, Random Guardsman, Jippy 390, Paulo, JT Gamble, Eric Potter, Hosep, and Super Toast 1134. Thank you guys for doing your part. I also want to do a shout out to the latest Patreon supporters as well. So a massive thank you to Blark, Now Gladder, Steel X Spider, Tiki the Hut, Zabras, Mark Allen, Mr. Weedle, Rosebush, Lassie, and Rickon Stark. And last, but certainly not least, I would like to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a massive thank you to Alan Blunt III, Bon Vert, Mark Panconi, Ridemaster 134-4, Ross Miller, Swordfish Trombone, Zabras, Alex Dengal, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, August Varney, and Tom Sutton. Thank you guys. Your incredibly generous support is a huge help, and it is a big part of how we are able to do things over here on the Mordian Glory channel. So thank you so much. I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.